good evening, and welcome back to Stories at 7 with the New Deal Creative Arts Center. I'm Miss Teresa, and I am continuing to read Peter Pan, and tonight we are reading chapters 6 and 7. So here we go. Chapter 6, Island Come True. As though it were a living, breathing thing, Neverland seemed to sense that Peter was almost home. Like a puppy, it strained and wiggled to meet him at the door. Whenever Peter went away, the island slowed. The fairies slept late, the wild animals nursed their babies, the pirates and the lost boys and the Indians stopped fighting wars and just called one another names instead. With his return, however, the whole place started to rumble as if a train were coming. The lost boys set out to find Peter, the pirates started looking for the lost boys, the Indians began looking for the pirates, and the wild animals started looking for the Indians. All of them went around and around the island, but at the same speed, so they never met. Let us take a moment to examine each group as it passes. The first to come our way are the lost boys. The number of lost boys varies. If someone grows up, which is against the rules, he is kicked out. Right now, there are 6. They wear bear skins and carry daggers, and they creep through the brushes like soldiers in a single file. Leading the group is Toodles. Toodles has bad luck. The biggest adventures always seem to happen whenever he steps around the corner for a snack. When he returns, he inevitably finds the boys putting on bandages after a brilliant and bloody fight. He could be bitter about it, but Toodles is the sweetest and humblest lost boy. Next comes Nibs, the best dressed of the lost boys, followed by Slightly, who can carve whistles out of wood and dances to his own tunes. Slightly is also the most arrogant lost boy. He sticks up his nose at everyone so much that sometimes you can see right up inside. Curly is the 4th boy. He is always getting into trouble, and he has grown accustomed to taking blame even for things he didn't do. Last are the twins. We will not describe them because no one can ever tell them apart anyway. Instead, let's move on to the pirates, close behind on the boys' trail. They are a scary-looking bunch. Leading their ragged group is the handsome Italian pirate Chpt, who carved his name in blood on the back of the warden of the prison from which he had escaped. Behind him is the giant tattooed Bill Jukes, who once took 6 bullets before dropping the bag of gold pieces he'd been stealing. Next are Cookson and Gentleman Starkey. Starkey is the most polite of the pirates. He always apologizes for stabbing anyone with his sword. Then comes the other pirates, Smee and Noodler, followed by a few more ruffians. Somewhere in the middle of this dark and dangerous group is James Hook, the most feared pirate of them all. His hair is styled in long, shiny black curls, framing a sternly handsome face. His eyes are deep and black and dead, unless he is plunging his hook into someone, in which case his eyes sparkle a bright and happy red. Hook is a different breed of pirate from the rest of his crew. Except at the sight of his own blood, he is courageous. He is a master storyteller. He speaks beautifully and softly, even when he is swearing, and is never more sinister than when he is being polite. After the pirates come the Indians. Creeping quietly like shadows, they carry tomahawks and knives. Among them is Tiger Lily, the beautiful Indian princess whom none dare approach for fear that she will raise her hatchet to them. Behind the Indians creep the beasts, lions, tigers, bears, and other animals. The beasts are so hungry that their tongues are hanging out. Finally, there comes a giant crocodile. He is hungry too, but not just for any meat. No, he has a strong craving for something, or rather someone, very specific. The boys stop first. They are getting tired. I wish Peter would get home already and tell us how Cinderella ends, Slightly said out of breath. Toodles was about to respond when the boys heard the pirates walking and singing in the distance. The lost boys had stopped, but the pirates were still coming. Peter had trained the boys well, and they knew exactly what to do. In a flash, they each ran to a nearby tree. Instead of climbing up, however, the boys went down. The trees were hollow, each with a hole in it exactly as big as one of the boys, and all leading to the same underground cave. Hook had heard about these tree doors and thought it silly that each boy had his own tree. For his purposes, however, it suited him just fine. 7 trees should be easier to find than just one. The pirates soon arrived in the clearing where the lost boys had just been. While the others fanned out to continue their search, Hook and Smee stayed behind. "I think I spotted that Nibs boy, Captain," Smee said. "Shall I run after him? I could tickle him with my sword." "No," Hook said. "I want them all, especially their captain, Peter Pan. He cut off my arm and threw it to a passing crocodile." He waved his iron claw in the air. "One of these days I'm going to shake his hand with this." "Is that why you fear crocodiles?" Smee asked. "Not all crocodiles," Hook replied. "Just that one. It thought my arm was so tasty that it has followed me ever since, licking its lips, just waiting to eat the rest of me. The only reason it has not caught me yet is because it has swallowed a clock which ticks inside. I always hear that beast coming and run away." "One day that clock's battery will die," Smee pointed out. "The ticking will stop." "Aye," Hook agreed darkly, sitting down on a mushroom. It was a strangely warm mushroom, Hook thought. Standing up, he pulled at the mushroom and discovered that its top came off easily. The headless mushroom then started to smoke. Why, it wasn't a mushroom at all. It was a chimney. Down the chimney, Hook heard voices. It was the lost boys. He had found their cave. Looking around now, he could see holes in 7 of the nearby trees. The entrances. "I heard them say Peter is away," Smee whispered. Hook smiled and nodded. He carefully replaced the mushroom top. He had a plan. "Let's return to the ship," Hook said. "We will bake a cake for them and leave it on Maruna's Rock in the Mermaid Lagoon. The boys are sure to find it and gobble it up, and I will make them sick so that we can capture them easily." Oh, how Hook and Smee laughed as they walked back to the boat. Soon, however, another sound replaced their laughter. It was the sound of ticking. Hook stopped short, shuddering. "Run!" yelled Smee, but Hook was already gone. Chapter 7. The Wendy Bird. Unaware that the pirates had found their hiding place, the boys waited for a while and then emerged from their underground cave. Suddenly, Nib saw something in the sky. "Look at that white bird," he shouted. "It sounds as if it's saying, 'Poor Wendy.' It must be a Wendy bird." It wasn't actually a bird that Nib saw at all, but poor Wendy herself flying up above. Now the boys heard another sound. It was the voice of Tinker Bell, shrill and jealous. She was no longer pretending to be nice to Wendy, but was pinching her and trying to make her fall. "Peter wants you to shoot this white bird," Tink called down to the boys. "Quick," cried the boys. "Bows and arrows." Toodles excitedly fitted an arrow to his bow. "Get out of the way, Tink," he shouted. He fired, and Wendy fluttered to the ground with an arrow in her breast. "I shot the Wendy bird," Toodles bragged. "Peter will be so proud of me." "Silly donkey," Tinkerbell clinked, laughing at her trick before going to hide. She knew she would be in trouble for urging poor Toodles to shoot Wendy. Slightly frowned as he looked at Wendy. "That is no bird," he said. "I think it is a lady." "A lady?" Toodles replied nervously. "Peter was bringing a lady to take care of us, and you've gone and killed her," Curly said. Toodles took a deep, sad breath. "I did it. I shot the Wendy lady," he said quietly, and turned to leave the group. Just then the boys heard a crowing sound up above. It was Peter's signal. He was back. They gathered around Wendy so that Peter would not see her. He dropped to the ground in front of them, but no one said a word. "Why so quiet, boys?" Peter asked, but still none of the boys spoke. "Never mind," Peter said. "I have news. I brought you back a mother. You may even have seen her already. I think she was flying this way." Toodles cleared his throat. "Boys," he said, "step aside." The boys obeyed, revealing Wendy's body. Peter bent, took the arrow from Wendy's heart, and turned to face his band of boys. "Whose arrow is this?" he asked sternly. "Mine, Peter," Toodles replied. Angrily, Instantly, Peter raised the arrow, prepared to hit Toodles with it, but he couldn't do it. At just that moment, Nibs saw Wendy move. The Wendy lady, he cried. She moved her arm. Peter bent over Wendy again and saw the acorn he had given to her when she asked for a kiss. It was on a string around her neck. The arrow had hit the acorn and saved her life. Hurry up and get better, he said, so I can introduce you to the boys and the mermaids. From her hiding spot above, Tink sighed loudly. Listen to Tink crying because Wendy lady is alive, Curly said. The boys told Peter about her crying. We are not friends anymore, Tink, Peter cried. Go away and never come back. Frantically, Tinkerbell flew onto Peter's shoulder and begged his forgiveness, but he brushed her off. Lying on the ground, Wendy stirred slightly. She was waking up. I'll be all right, she said wearily. You don't have to banish her. Well, all right, Peter told Tinkerbell. You can come back, but not for a whole week. You would think Tinkerbell would be grateful to Wendy for defending her, but Wendy's generosity only made Tink want to pinch her even more. Wendy, in the meantime, was so tired and sore from her fall that she rolled over onto her side and fell asleep. I have an idea, Peter said. Let's build Wendy a house. The boys were thrilled. They loved to build. They were incredibly quick carpenters, too, scurrying around for firewood, branches, and twigs, and looking for soft, cushiony flowers to use for her bedding. Just then, John and Michael dropped from the sky. They had been sleep flying, but they woke up as soon as they hit the ground. Mama? Michael cried, rubbing his eyes. Nana? Where are we? John asked. Are we dreaming? Finally, the boys spotted Peter. Oh, hello, Peter said distractedly. He had forgotten all about them. Using his feet as a ruler, he bent to measure Wendy to see how big her new house should be. Come on, he told her brothers. We are building a house for Wendy, and you have to help. I don't see why Wendy should get her own house, John said. She's only a girl. She's going to be our mother, Curly said. Now you heard Peter. Get to work. Wendy moved and groaned a bit in her sleep. Slightly, Peter cried. Go get a doctor. Slightly said, aye, aye, and left at once before remembering that there were no doctors on the island. Still, he knew better than to disobey Peter, so he returned wearing John's hat and looking very serious. Although the other boys knew that Slightly was just pretending, Peter did not. To him, make-believe was the same thing as true, and so, convinced that Slightly was in fact a doctor, he said, Help this lady, she is very ill. I will give her some medicine, said Slightly, bending over the sleeping Wendy and pretending to do just that. And there, she is cured. What a relief, Peter said. While Wendy slept, the boys built her house around her. They knew she would love it because she kept talking in her sleep. I wish I had a pretty house, the smallest ever seen, with bright and shiny reddish walls and a roof of mossy green. As they worked, the boys said back, We've built your walls and a mossy roof and made a lovely door. So tell us now, Wendy, Mother, do you want something more? Still sleeping, Wendy said, Well, since you ask, I'd surely grin, for windows all about, and daffodils peeping in and babies peeping out. And so the boys built windows and pulled flowers for Wendy, but they weren't quite sure what to do about the babies. Let's just pretend that part, they said. When they were finished, the house was beautiful, and Wendy was completely contained inside. They were about to go inside to surprise her when they realized they had forgotten to put a knocker on the door. Silly monkeys, Tinkerbell cried from above. Toodles gave the sole of his shoe to hang on the door, which did the trick. Now there was nothing left to do but knock. Everyone stand up straight, Peter warned, and be on your best behavior. He knocked politely, and all the boys waited. When Wendy opened the door, blinking sleepily, the boys whipped off their hats and bowed. Where am I? She said, confused and surprised. The boys practically tumbled over one another to explain. We built you this house, Slightly said. Do you like it? Asked Nibs. It's lovely, she said, looking around. How did you know it's exactly what I wanted? Just clever, I guess, said Slightly. He saw no need to tell her that she had been talking in her sleep. Can we be your children? The twins asked. Well, Wendy said, that's awfully nice of you, but I am only a child myself. I have no real experience." "That's okay," Peter said, although he actually knew less about mothers than any of them. "We just need a nice motherly person. You'll do." Wendy agreed to try and invited all the boys into her new house. As they gathered around, she did her first motherly thing and told them the end of Cinderella. When she was finished, she followed the boys to their cave and tucked them in for the evening before returning to her own home. Okay, that is chapters 6 and 7. Please join me again tomorrow night as we continue reading of the wonderful story of Peter Pan. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.